What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Champion Mindset, Finding the Way. I'm your host, Tommy Stiles. With me, Dom Cardone. Dom and I realized we were just having a podcast before hitting record, so we're just going to jump right in. Today, we're talking about mindset and giving you real-time, how we're getting through adversity. Something we're both dealing with at the same time is we got GI maps recently. Dom, you got yours probably like a month before mine as far as results. Without making this podcast too X's and O's of functional health, your GI map's a mess, mine's a mess. You name it, we got it when it comes to gut dysbiosis. So that called for an intensive protocol for both of us, for both our different cases. With that comes a lot of mental swings that we've both been going through. So I know for me, this is going to be helpful just to like talk to someone who can relate to where I'm at, because little backstory, I think, I noticed gut issues on myself as far back as 2017. I've always put it in the box that that's just what it takes to be a bodybuilder. You got to feel uncomfortable and push. And, I've never had a huge appetite. So I thought this is just how it had to be. So I've kind of normalized always having some degree of bloating, always really never having hunger for most of the off season, pretty much always feeling fatigued and pretty poor as far as day to day, other than in the gym. So, where we're at now, I'm 3 weeks into my protocol, and we're kind of here to talk about what it's done to us mentally and what it's like going through this process. So, first off, what's the number one thing you've noticed about fixing your gut? Because what we're doing is a good thing, but it's challenging in the sense of it's basically put us both on a road where we have to kind of pause and just let this process play out.
Yeah, so Tommy's been in his protocol for about 3 weeks. I had been on mine for 6 weeks. I thought I felt okay, but just to give the viewers some backstory, got really sick in Vegas with something with the stomach and everything. I mean, severe diarrhea for about a month. Antibiotics didn't even turn it around, which the antibiotics probably for sure made the dysbiosis even worse because they were very strong. Prior to Vegas, though, I got sick quite a lot over the last year. Which I know a lot of people are, which maybe a lot of people could take a note from this, and maybe it's stemming from your gut. But with that being said, I'm 6 weeks into my program. It does have its ups and downs. At first, they say you feel worse before you get better, and that's absolutely true. I had severe anxiety, and the reason why you have this feeling is because the bacteria and whatnot's dying off inside of you, and it's going into the bloodstream, the brain, all that stuff, and it has to go out. I had, severe anxiety, and I'm not even an anxious person. I had some racing thoughts, some severe fatigue, and as I put at the time, like laziness. And Tommy said you could just stare off into the distance, and that's how it was. And now I finally rounded that curve. I have of course, some days where I don't feel 100%, but we're still taking the supplements. That stuff is still dying off inside of us. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And, but what I have noticed is my stomach is now just damn near about 100%. I had a meal this weekend, 2 meals this weekend. Everything was completely fine. Everything's been clean otherwise, 100% clean otherwise, low FODMAP diet. Stomach's almost completely fine. Energy is going up on most days, brain clarity. My joints are perfect, damn near perfect. But as Tommy said, we had to pull back on things. So when you go through these processes, you can't train hard. Your heart rate can't go over 120 beats per minute because you have to constantly be in a parasympathetic state to heal. That's when the body heals, digest and heal. So for 6 weeks, I haven't done much training at all. No hard cardio, no hard weight training, and definitely no MMA training. So couple this with the mild depressive feelings, I will call it. I don't want to call it depression, and anxiety and some laziness and boredom. I feel like I'm not doing anything with myself other than my work and anything I do extra. And it does, like even today, this morning, I told my girlfriend, I'm like, I can't wait to get back into training because kind of feel like I'm losing my mind at times. I have nowhere to put myself into physically, and it's a very big part of my life, as it is for Tommy. And but yeah, so I have about 2 to 3 more weeks of no training, and then I could ease back in. But it's definitely been a hurdle because this is the most time off I've had in God knows how long, and especially with that training. So just trying to process through the mental, and again, mental adversities of this, and those feelings about when they come, why I'm feeling it. Because at first I didn't put two and two together that it was the program, even though I knew. I'm like, why am I anxious, and why am I getting physical symptoms of anxiety and these depressive feelings? So couple that with not being able to train. It's like, I mean, what have you felt?
A lot of the same. It can, yeah, exactly. I don't want to label it as depression. I don't want to, neither one of us is trying to turn this into a pity party. Look at us, feel bad for us. I'm grateful that I'm in a position to, have the money to afford the supplement protocol, to, live the lifestyle that I can. For the most part, I'm never outside of parasympathetic state based off my life. I work from a computer, and I live in Arizona. There's a lot of good that's happening here. So, I want to point out, we're just kind of bringing awareness to what it's like to take on something mentally, because we're in it real time. And for me, it's really challenged me mentally because, 12-week protocol, basically, for me, it's felt like my life is put on pause because I've had plans. I had plans for next year. I work ahead. I visualize months in advance, and that's how I kind of go about my life. So when we started my protocol, you and I had a discussion like, hey, nationals most likely won't happen next year, which that I had started planning for that before USA's was even done. So for me, it's always what's next, lock in. Okay, now I just need to work. Time hasn't caught up to what my goals are. But so there was a couple-week period where I was just kind of felt like the carpet got pulled out, and I didn't know really what I was doing anymore. I didn't have the direction or that concrete timeline in my head. So it did give me like depressive thoughts. I won't say I was depressed, but this is what it could feel like for me to be depressed, is just to have that timeline kind of open-ended, extended with no real end in sight. So I've noticed the brain fog is heavy. I mean, I can just stare off into another planet. And you ever watch a movie where it's like everything goes really fast around the main character and they're just stuck there, and like there's cars zooming by and people talking and walking, and like that's kind of how it's felt to be in public, is just like I'm like stuck on play, and then the rest of the movie, like the world around me, is on like fast forward, and I'm just kind of going through time.
That's the best way of putting it, because like I said, some days I'll feel, and I actually noticed it last night. I went to go visit my brother in Orlando. He was in from the Army doing he's into explosive ordnance disposal team. And I remember I was driving, I felt, and I remember as he was talking to me, it was just, I had to keep like pulling myself into the present. So that's like been another learning experience and adapting over the last 6 weeks too, because normally when I'm in conversation and I'm working and whatever, I'm very present. I could be a very present person. So having that and it's actually taught me to be even more aware. Maybe I'm a bit hyper aware, even though it's kind of contradicting what we're saying, but into what I'm feeling and what my body is going through. I can see doing this. A lot of people can say, fuck this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not doing this. But again, that goes back to putting feelings over actually overdoing and what's going on. I can absolutely see most people not going through this. It'll be very easy to go to the doctor, get antibiotics. They don't work most of the time. Shit, I'll be honest, I haven't thought about that. I'm like, damn, it'd be much easier just to go get antibiotics, but that ain't gonna fix it. But again, so now I kind of use it as a challenge. Like, all right, I can't train, so I have more time in my hands, which means more time sitting around. with these thoughts and feelings, which are, again, guys, there's normal a part of this process of healing the stomach. So even like right now, like just gather my thoughts a little. Mornings are tough. Um, no matter how much we can't even really drink caffeine. So that's another thing too. There's nothing we can even rely on to, pick this up. So you're like, what do I do here? So it's made where, so I challenge myself. All right, I'm doing this. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to be present in this conversation and or this work. So that's been a cool part about it, that I've kind of put a spin on it. Like, all right, like I've done mercury treatment before. I've done, other things before. Like, all right, I'll just add this to the list. So I make that into a challenge. Like, all right, I know this is going to end at some point. It's getting better, which is, I turn that curve. So now I challenge myself. Okay, how can I be more present? How can I be more thoughtful? How can I be more graceful in conversations too? Because I've had some irritability. I had some irritability too. So that's like kind of a spin I put on it, aside from things that I've implemented in my life to try to take up that spare time. Again, we can't have high activity. We can't be doing cardio. I could have easily said, fuck this, I'm going to go train, but it's going to be counterproductive to what I'm doing. Again, that's short-term gratification. And here we are fully immersing ourselves in delayed gratification, because we've given ourselves no choice but to heal ourselves from this, because our future selves are going to benefit from this. Me with my fighting training, you with improving your off season, then getting back on stage. Like, we've made this a non-negotiable for us. So that's another way I'm looking at it too, is that delayed gratification. It'll be very easy right now, again, to say, screw this, I'm going to go eat whatever I want, or do whatever I want to do and train, but it's just going to creep back up later. And I think that's a cool message to anybody who's watching this, is this concept can be literally applied to anything, prep, whatever it is. So, or if you're going through a phase like this or something similar. So just immersing myself in that delayed gratification and giving myself these little challenges. Like yesterday, I had a Zoom call for something involving business. Before I had to hop on, the thoughts going to my head was, I really don't want to do this right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with everybody. I would love to sit here and say, yeah, I'm hard. I'm all about doing everything. I was like, fuck, I'm going to have an hour-long conversation right now talking about taxes and financial planning and stuff. Like, no, it was the last thing I wanted to do at that time. But once that call went on, I'm like, all right, let me just get in this mode, do this in my best ability, and get it done. So that's been a small synopsis of how I've been viewing it. How have you been viewing it? What has been your perspective on it?
A lot of the same, in the sense of just not wanting to do things that I normally do without thinking about. Even to the point of, like, it feels like laziness, because then you get in this mental battle with yourself. Well, you see the dishes are full, just do the dishes. And then it's like, well, I don't want to do the dishes. And then you're like, but you got to do the dishes, or you're kind of a bum, and you're living like a bum. And it's just it becomes this war. And like you said, for me, anxiety's a pot, like that's fuel. I've always used anxiety as like a sense of urgency, like, and I create a game of beat the clock or whatever I got to do to like heighten the experience of living towards my goals. But it's become this mental game of battling laziness. I mean, the first week I was on the protocol, I have a TV over there, and I turned it on and I watched movies, and I never watched, like, that's just so boring to me. But I watched movies like 4 days in a row, and I could tell, like, man, you're not doing well. Like, but it's like we keep saying, it's all for a greater purpose. But while you're in the trenches of it, it's true forced delayed gratification. Because before I saw those GI map results, I was in the mindset of, well, I'm really, really tired all the time, other than I'm a horse in the gym. But outside of that, I feel miserable. And I was committed to feeling like that until, halfway through prep again. I was going to be in that space of, like, I will feel as miserable as I have to feel to get what I need done. So I've tried to tap into that, same as you. Like, man, how badly would my business have suffered if I tried to like push through that? How bad would my coaching have gotten? if I was just chronically fatigued and I could only pull it together to be in the gym a couple hours a day. How bad would like I be as a person? We talk about the brain fog now, but how if the gut truly is our second brain and I'm dealing with all this stuff that I saw in the GI map, how maybe I would fall into a state of what I would deem depression, all because my gut was messed up. It's not actually life that makes people depressed. I think now more than anything, it's gut stuff that's driving our perspectives of what's happening around us to deem it depressive.
1,000%. It's a state of inflammation. What is most of these issues that people have are always stemming from inflammation, and you said it's connected to the immune system, the gut, and it is. And it's funny. I remember he was like, dude, if you think you're operating on 100%, you're at about like 30%. We put on our blinders and we do what we do, but also too, what is suffering when we're in a moment? What is suffering in our lives because of what's going on in our body? And a lot of people deal with this. I mean, how many bodybuilders are truly lazy? A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Eat food, they go to the gym, they go home, they play video games. And being exhausted thing all the time, it used to be like, yeah, that's normal, but it is not normal to be so fatigued all the time and brain fogged. I mean, so it's another message to everybody out there. It's not really normal to feel like that year long. Sure, in prep, it's a norm, it's an accepted norm, but year round, me and Tommy before this podcast, we were saying like obviously these issues have been stemming for a while. He said his has been going on since 2017. Mine are fairly newer from my last GI map was done 2021. So whatever I was doing during my comeback and the mercury detox definitely built all that up on top of the hard training after. So, if you're dealing with any of these issues, just a side note, like run a GI map. You can save on investing in growth. If it's a financial thing, you can save on investing into growth hormone and drugs for a bit. Get this GI map done, because aside from the physicality and the bodybuilding and physique portion of it, it can affect your life, and you can develop a form of depression from this, or anxiety. Your work may fall behind because of this. It absolutely plays a part, and then you're left in this continuous cycle of you don't even know what you're in. That's the thing. Most of these people go into these modes and then they don't know, and then that again, feelings become priority, and then they start slacking off on whatever it is they have to do in life, training and that stuff aside. So that's a great point. When you're in it, you don't really realize it. And whatever you do feel, you put it to the side until something even bigger happens.
Yeah, no, it's kind of felt like a spider web that you're just slowly untangling yourself out of. And that's the hard part, because you just, like you said earlier, I can see why people would just be like, screw this. I'm going to live my life how I was living it before and whatever. We just had Thanksgiving, and like, you're at a point to where you could have a meal off what the plan is. I'm not yet. I didn't even ask for it, because I now that I'm 3 weeks in, to me, I look at it as like, well, I've already went this far. I would be pissed if I quit, because I already started. But if I quit, a weekend, it's whatever. But I've already made it 3 weeks. So now I'm trying to make it 4, and then to 5, and then just to keep stacking up progress. But I could see why a lot of people would just bail for the caffeine alone. I mean, there's no caffeine and no coffee. That was pulled out right at the start. So I'm not someone that's a big, I would never consider myself a caffeine junkie, but I use it. I have it before training, and I have it selectively throughout the day when I work. So it wasn't that I can't do things because I didn't have the caffeine. I'm sure that was a little bit of a part of it, but I realized how habitual I was with caffeine use. Like, time to go train, time to have a pre-workout with stims in it. If I'm sitting down for a long work block, let me get a cold brew. Social things are tied around coffee. Like, if I have to do like a long day of errands, I would get a coffee first, because it just made the next step more enjoyable. It's because, bodybuilders and athletes, we don't really drink alcohol. So coffee's kind of like our thing. Like, I'm gonna get a coffee or an energy drink if you're doing that. But so you have all that pulled out. So there's no like damn, I got a lot of work to do. Let me just get a coffee and power through it. Like there's none of that. So I think that provides another form of like, delayed gratification of like, what is the next time I have stimulants going to do to me? Am I going to run to the moon?
Well, especially how clean your body is going to be. And aside from the detox process of all of it, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, there we go.
Right there.
Yeah, that's what happens. That part kills me because I love being very fluent with how I talk.
Yeah.
I have to gather my thoughts. What else did you want to hit on this topic?
So, I mean, from my personal standpoint, and I'm sure you're the same because you have coaches. Do you have coaches that know what's going on with what you're fixing?
Yes. So Jason Theobald.
Right. I mean, for MMA, do you have guys who know like, hey, I can't train and push right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like even my main coach, Thiago. Sorry, see, that's the processing of thoughts sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my main coach, Thiago Alves, when I first told him, he's like, dude, no, you absolutely have to take off. Like, I don't even want you training until you're 100% because I need you healthy. Aside from going into a training camp, a fight camp, he's like, you need to absolutely get this taken care of. He goes, if you're not 100% now, imagine what he's same thing. Well, imagine what you would be when you're healthy. And at first I was wondering how he would respond. But those guys were all about making sure with injuries to a degree, making sure you're healthy and performing at your maximum capacity. But also thinking ahead, like you'll never make it through a fight camp like that. You're going to get sick. You'll maybe catch a skin infection. So they do know. Like they were like, well, the first ones I told, because I wouldn't be coming into train anymore. And of course he checks in with me, weekly. So we have, like I said, I'm 6 weeks in now, almost fully 6 weeks in. I have another 2 to 3 weeks before I can start easing into training again. I wouldn't be able to go 100% even if I wanted to, because my cardio and the physical, my muscles would never be able to handle it. So it'll be easing in and allowing the body to get used to that higher stress, because as you know, training is a stress of the body. And that's another thing too, is people don't realize is that stress, but we've had our talks about stress, which most people stress themselves out, are a big addition to these issues and why they happen. So going through this process, like I'm learning, like, all right, let me make sure I'm keeping it. Was easy. Like during Olympia, I was stressing myself out more than anything. Number one, I'm not training. I don't have another outlet. I realize I don't have another outlet to allow my energy, whatever energy I have, to put that into. So Olympia week, I was like, dude, like even my girl, thank God she went there. Like she was like keeping me chill. I mean, it was my first Olympia having an open guy, but still it was way more than I would normally deal with. And I don't normally stress myself out. So it was during that week, I'm like, all right, I don't have that outside outlet to dump into. Because normally if I have something going on, I go and train afterwards. I'm happier than anybody in the world. I'm good for days after. So it was then I'm like, all right, I really need to be self-aware and conscious about, am I applying more stress on myself? Is it the process that's causing this? Which it is. So that was another piece in this too. I realized that week is, not having that outlet to train in. I can't go get a coffee. I can't have all these things are gone. So it's just been like an adaptation process. And I've learned quite a bit about not only my gut with this, but even with how I'm, my outlook on certain things. And again, taking in stress, if you want to call it, and those pressures. So, but yeah, even they were circling back to what you were saying. Yeah, they know, and they were like, dude, no, you gotta heal, because there's no way you would be able to. Again, I'm just gonna hit another wall. It'll either be a stomach issue or a sickness of some sort. So hopefully, a few more weeks, I can get back in there and ease back in. But I need to make sure I'm 100% first.
Right. Was there an initial a thought that ran through your head of like not wanting to let them down?
Oh, absolutely. Like that was like the first thought. Like they're dumping all this time into me, and we've spent hours upon hours, and I was supposed to fight in March. I don't know if that's a realistic possibility now, because now I need to play catch up, get things back up to 100%, and then go into a camp. it was within a few weeks before. He was like, dude, yeah, like let's fight first quarter of next year. I was like, fuck, dude, I was so amped. Like you with going into
Yeah.
nationals next year,
Yeah.
for me, like I'm gonna be honest, like I was like, fuck, like I'm like, all right, I had this goal. Everything was going amazing, or at least I thought it was. Felt at least I felt it was. And I was like, fuck, I'm like, we were just planning on doing this, finding an opponent in December or January. I'm like mapping everything out in my head. And that was gone. And I remember telling him, like, fuck, I feel like of course I feel like I was letting him down. Like they do put their heart and passion into what they do. I see it every time we train. And but it was relieving to me to hear his response and how right away he was like, no, you got to get that taken care of. Like that was right. I just felt it right off him. Like, no, dude, you got to heal. And every time we speak, he says the same thing. I need you healthy. I need you healthy. He's like, let's just start after the new year. Let's just give yourself time. So that was reassuring too, because you listen to your coaches, you want to perform for your best for your coaches, you set these goals, you need to achieve them and reach them. So that was a big thing in me at the beginning. Like for a week, I was pretty upset about that because I had all this to look forward to. And after all the training I've done, and all right, like you said, press pause.
Yeah.
On top of that, feel like you're letting somebody down. It's like, okay, add that on top. But after a week, I was like, okay, let's just get through this and take it a week at a time. And now I was like, this is going to be the longest 2 to 3 months of my life. I'm already almost 2 months in. But I've taken it week to week. So another point I want to add to you too, like we have this extra time that we're not able to train as hard, or we're not able to expel that energy that we have into. So now I put my time into other things. I study more bodybuilding related topics. I study, my faith is a big part of my life. I study my Bible more. I watch more videos on bodybuilding and nutrition and training. Even now, like mental mindset of like, I've been real big into watching Delta Force guys and SF operators and how they operate mentally. So, and then even with the MMA training, like what can I do with that portion now? I can't really train. So what do? I watch videos, and one of my coaches who was back in Vegas, we still talk regularly. He says, start a journal. He goes, we all used to journal our stuff. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, we journaled everything we would learn, put in the journal in detail, put a note against who taught it to you. So I watch videos, and again, I journal it now. I watch videos, so I study. So I'm trying to apply myself into other aspects of my life that improve myself, even though I got caught up in the movie thing too. Netflix and Prime Video.
Self-loathing.
Dude, oh God, I'm like, because I haven't watched movies in so long. Like when me and my girlfriend hang out, we put our phones to the side and we watch a movie, but that's not all the time.
Right.
But I started doing it on my own. I'm like, wait, what the? I'm like, am I really laying in bed right now watching Netflix? So when I caught that, I'm like, all right, let me apply myself into other parts that would improve myself. So that's been a great aspect for me, is improving myself, putting more emphasis into those things when I do have that free time, because I'm not training 2 or 3 hours a day anymore. So, my work is only going to take up so much. And November was also slower with November, December is always slower with new athletes coming on board. There's not really any shows going on. So that's another thing too. So it's not like my workload is as greater as it was. So there's only so much time I can put into that. So that's been another great portion I wanted to share with everybody is, where instead of me just laying around and letting myself get caught up in my feelings, I put more emphasis and work into my self-improvement into whatever aspects I've laid out.
Yeah. I think we've talked about that at one of our episodes of, controlling what you can control, compartmentalizing, what can I do right now? So like you said, we can't train hard. And in my case, I'm not putting on new tissue. Calories got pulled back. It's just pause. It's maintenance. It's on my side of things, I'm on TRT. So that's a huge deflating feeling too, of one that I'm always good to get through. I can handle TRT. I'm not one of those bodybuilders that, if there's body dysmorphia, it's just because I want to be huge and I never feel big enough. So it's not like I feel like less of a man in the real world. But controlling what you can control, I've made it a point to do more mobility work, working on my joints, stretching, I guess. Cardio's still in, just not letting the heart rate get too elevated. With this process, I've noticed I can do vacuums better without as much restriction. So trying to work on the waistline. Just anything I can do to give me that mental satisfaction of being able to progress within the set of circumstances that I have. And I think that's a good point for people to take home is if you find yourself in a situation like this, if you find yourself, it's anybody who's pushing training for whatever it's for to the max, you're going to run into injuries and nicks and, speed bumps. So always just, process it, reel everything in, compartmentalize it to what can I control right now. And I'm not saying it makes the process any easier because it's still like it's day to day of week to week right now. But it can at least provide you a little bit of dopamine if you create checklists of what you can do and what you can accomplish. Because I mean, I'm sure you can, like the Netflix, the movie route, that has about a 1 to 2 day satisfaction rate before you're gonna go bonkers, man. Because same thing, I was just picking movies that suck, and I was like, I just need to fill time until I can like get over this.
That's what I was, because I could find nothing. So not to get too off point, because I think that's a good closing take home message. And that's a great closing take home message, because I know we're going to get off here soon. I was watching just movies that I wasn't even engaged in and they were absolutely horrible, but just taking up meaningless time. So that's when I was like, all right, let me make my list of what I want to do. And that's what I've done. I just apply that to other parts. Control what you can control. And that's all we can do.
Yeah. As far as GI maps, I mean, my experience and working with you on it tells me that most bodybuilders who've probably been in the game a while and have pushed food and done that whole bit, it probably benefits you to treat a GI map like blood work. You probably need to get one a year. Maybe you feel differently, maybe other people feel differently, but with how wrecked mine was, and knowing how long I've been bodybuilding, and there's guys I know that have been doing it as long or longer and have a lot of the same complaints with, the bloating and just the mental wear and tear eating when you don't want to eat takes for months at a time. Don't delay it. Don't avoid doing it because you don't want to go through this process. Potentially it's a small price to pay when it's 8 to 12 weeks in total for what the bigger picture is. So now that I'm as far in as I'm in, I'm glad I'm sticking it out and gutting it out, because that's a point I wanted to make. Taking this on, like you're the one giving me the protocol and telling me what the restrictions are and all that, then it creates a new game of, well, I don't want this guy to think I'm a bit like, you're my coach, I don't want him to think I'm a bitch and can't take this. There's an ego part that's like, I'm going to prove that I can do this. But that's the part that's challenging me in every way, because you have to hit pause, gears pulled back, food's pulled back, no caffeine, no training, no outlet, like you said. So it's, for me, I can label it as like, this is one of the bigger challenges, because like I'm physically able to push. Like I could go into the gym, and even on TRT, I could train really, really hard. And knowing that I'm going in there and having to like keep myself on a leash is really one of the bigger challenges. But like you said, it's that delayed gratification. Just keep getting there, because there's flare-ups. There's this, I see somebody, I saw Regan was like 292 the other day. I was like, God damn it, I should be pushing right now. And then you have to like calm yourself down and just remember that what you're doing is for a bigger purpose.
Yeah, no, because it's the same exact thing. I see certain things, I'm like, fuck, I want to train right now. I can't, but just to touch on what you just said about bodybuilders doing the GI maps. I know this isn't a functional medicine or really bodybuilding podcast. I do think it's important. Most guys are dealing with stomach issues, or they don't even realize they're dealing with issues. They're just compounding and putting it away, and or you may think you feel good, And you see these bodybuilders with these high inflammatory diets, adding PEDs, you're bound to get them. It's very rare you're not going to get them. And it may not be now, but it will be later on. I mean, a lot of people don't realize you're not going to get issues right away with PEDs. You're not going to get issues right away with inflammatory foods. It's something that compounds through time. You may not have symptoms, but it may be there. And then something is going to just push it over the edge a little bit. And then you start getting symptoms, and then it builds up, and then it builds up. So if you want to preserve your athletic career or journey, whatever you want to call it, like Tommy said, run one of these once a year. Even if it comes up with nothing, excellent, but you don't put this on the back burner, because like he just said, blood work is critical. It's very important. And this should be something else that people should be taking more serious, because we see more distended stomachs. We see people with no appetites and fatigue and such and so forth. But these issues could lead towards autoimmune issues and depressive issues and such and so forth. So I definitely stand by what you said, especially with my experience with this. Guys, take that a bit more serious, because wherever it is, $500, $600 once a year to make sure you're not only performing optimally, performing at the highest level, but for your future self's health, it's pretty important.
Yeah, so I'm glad we could hop on and talk about how to deal with setbacks in real time, because it's not what you say you would do, and when you face adversity, it's what your actions are and how you handle it in real time. So I hope everyone can take something from this, provide a little bit of value. If you have questions about what we're individually dealing with, drop them in the comments below, shoot us messages, whatever. Maybe you've had similar symptoms. Maybe you've gone through the GI map fixing thing process as far as the different protocols and ways you can go about it. But it all applies. If you're dealing with an injury, you're dealing with, maybe something life-wise that's hitting you, how you always can control what you can control. There's always a way to simplify what you're dealing with, and at least get yourself out of bed, or turn off the TV and don't watch Netflix and self-loathe. So like, share, comment, subscribe. We'll keep pumping these out based off our schedules every couple of weeks. But for Dom Cardone, I'm Tommy Styles. This has been a Champion Mindset Finding the Way, and we're out of here.